Continuing with our series focusing on the characters featured in the story of Christmas, we have Mary and Joseph. And if you don't know their story, or you're not super familiar with it, Mary was an unmarried woman. Betrothed, meaning like basically engaged, pledged to be married to a man named Joseph. And starting off, one of the big controversies you may encounter, especially on social media, is that it was mistranslated. That in the Hebrew, the word Alma is used, which could mean just young woman, not necessarily virgin. Here's the issue. Matthew and Mark and Luke, when they are when they're writing their books, their gospels, they weren't using the Hebrew. They would have been using the Septuagint. And the Septuagint is unmistakable in what it says. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the word there because I don't speak Greek. But it means virgin. It doesn't mean unmarried woman. It doesn't mean those things. It means literally a woman who has never known a man. And we know this as well throughout the text because it says that in Matthew that when she gives birth, that he had never known her, which the word there is the exact same one when it says Adam and Eve, that he knew his wife and she conceived, when it says that Abraham knew his wife and she conceived, that it means the same thing. It's unmistakable. That gambit simply doesn't apply. It's attempting to use something that just doesn't fit there. They were using the Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Old Testament, which is called that because it was 70 Hebrew Greek scholars that were Jews got together and they created it in the process. So that's why it's called that. But that is what they would have been sourcing from when Matthew, Mark, and Luke are writing their Gospels. They would have been writing it with the Greek memorized behind it, essentially, not the Hebrew. So they knew, and it's something as well, people in the modern era that have TikTok channels or whatever try to pretend like they know Hebrew or Greek better than people that literally spoke those languages, and I find that to be laughable. But all of that aside, what we are presented with here is first off a contrast from our star from last week of Zechariah, where he doubts what Gabriel is telling him and is silenced for it. Where Mary, when she is given this message that she will conceive despite being a virgin, which she even says, and how will this be since I am a virgin, in verse 34 of chapter 1 of Luke, says that God is going to accomplish this, and her response is, let it be according to your word. That it shows later that when she's thinking about this stuff, it says she stores it up in her heart when she meets Elizabeth later, and Elizabeth declares that she is blessed, having met the woman carrying her Savior, that she stores up these things when the shepherds come to visit, that they saw angels in the sky announcing this birth, that she stores those things up when she dedicates Jesus at the temple, and the pronunciations over him at that event. She stores those things up and remembers them. That does she have questions? Does she have doubts? Does she have maybe fear and anxiety? Almost certainly. Think about what it would be like to be a teenage girl in today's society to find out you're going to be pregnant or that you are pregnant. That's scary. Even in a stable marriage full of love and stability and care and affection, finding out you're pregnant is frightening because of the change that it presents. That there's a lot of fear. What's going to happen to us? How is this going to affect our routines and our future? How is this? It's going to put certain projects on hold. It's going to cause us to have to change some of our plans. That's just reality. And so imagine being alone in that, fearing, what is Joseph going to do when he finds out that I'm pregnant? Is he going to trust what I am saying about this? Is he going to take my word for it? Is he going to stay by my side? All of those thoughts are going through her head, but she submits to it anyway, which is another refutation of something I hear often in secular circles, that she was sexually assaulted by God, or that she wasn't able to give consent and things like that. Like, that's silly. It's just pathetic attempts to say things about the text that are just not there again. But I think it presents us with a question of, what are you willing to endure to accomplish the will of God for your life? What kind of discomfort, what kind of inconveniences are you willing to subject yourself to? Are you willing to go without, let's say, some major modern conveniences in order to have some surplus so that you can give that away? Are you willing to have a space in your home available that if someone needs that space, they can utilize it to get on their feet, recover from things that are afflicting them? Are you willing to? What are you willing to go through? Because I think for most of us, we want God's will as long as it doesn't get in our way. And that's just the truth. That's just if we were honest. Most of the time we're not honest, though. On Sundays, we're, God, have your way. And then as soon as church gets out, it's my way or the highway. So, what are you willing to endure? What about shame, humiliation? Teenage girls, even now, find out a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl turns up pregnant. Scarlet letter still applies in some ways. If even in Christian communities where that should not be happening, it still does. That, I mean, these kids, that they end up dropping out of school, they end up like these things because they receive so much emotional, verbal abuse from others on account of the fact that a normal thing has occurred. Imagine being in a very small town. Everyone knows what your name is, and your business is the gossip at every community gathering. Your family is now being shamed because it turns out you're pregnant when you weren't married. Are you willing to endure that kind of scorn? Are you willing, in our modern context, are you willing to go to a place where they're going to look at you differently? They're not going to be willing to commercially deal with you, sell to you, buy from you, because they know that you're a Christian, that you're going to have to maybe pay additional costs and fees for being a Christian, that you might be subjected to physical, emotional, verbal abuse for being a Christian and testifying to the work of Christ. Are you willing to endure that? Because my bet is that not only are you not willing to, you would think anyone else that is willing to is foolish, silly, maybe. Like, that doesn't happen anyway, right? Imagine, like, it's fear-mongering. Well, something I encounter quite often is the idea that Christians have a persecution complex. I would disagree. I think Christians have a little bit more acute understanding of the way the world really works. That because of connections through our missions team at our church, for instance, we're aware of, or ministries like Voice of the Martyrs, that we're just aware of things that are happening in this world that other people are not aware of, they're not informed about, that they would like to be able to just sweep under the rug, that they can just turn off the feed and forget about. Because it's not people that they know, it's not people that they care about, it's in nations far away, people of different colored skin, speaking a different language. Who cares? Well, for one, God cares. And second, the church suffers together. We are one body. If one part hurts, the whole thing hurts. So when we see people in other nations, other regions of this planet that claim Christ to a deficit financially, emotionally, physically, enduring severe challenges as a result, our heart goes to them and hopefully unites with them in prayer, unites with them materially, whether that's sending financial resources, other forms of resources that they need in order to accomplish the things that God has set aside for them to do. Hopefully, but probably not, right? I know what the statistics look like. Probably not, but it's not too late, right? It's not too late for you to heed this call and respond. Get on board. Stop being idle. And assess in yourself, what are you willing to endure for the sake of the gospel? And then increase that cost in some way. Increase the price that you're willing to pay. The price that you're willing to invest for the sake of the gospel.